Thank you for the question. I think that talking about what led to the 7th of October can be a 2-3 hours lecture. So I'll try to be brief and mention some crucial points that brought us to the 7th of October. Really, I think that from my perspective, the beginning of the problem is really in Oslo 30 years ago. I can say that Gaza, from 67 all the way to the early 90s, Gaza was a non-issue. Gaza was at the Stone Age. There was a very small division running Gaza. I remember at that time we were all more concentrated on what's going on the Syrian border or Lebanon or even Judea and Samaria. Gaza was really a non-issue. But then came Oslo. And in Oslo, we gave control to the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, a murderous organization that became the Palestinian Authority. And we gave them control of the cities, we weaponized them, and we took a decision: we're not going to operate in these cities anymore. Following that, it took exactly 7 years to take the Gaza Strip under the Palestinian Authority, not Hamas, from the Stone Age, literally, to shooting rockets on Israel. Oslo was implemented in 1994. 2001, first rockets were shot on the city of Sderot. 3 years later, we completely lost control of the Gaza Strip, and all of that before the disengagement, before we pulled out completely of Gaza. 10 years after Oslo, we could not contain terror in Gaza anymore. I arrived to Gaza as a combat engineer officer of the division in 1997. And I remember I was shocked in the first week because I found myself dealing with a threat that I was responsible to deal with and I never encountered before. This threat was tunnels. So it turns out that the moment we left Rafah, and we handed Rafah to the Palestinian Authority, immediately they started digging tunnels from the Gazan side of Rafah to the Egyptian side of Rafah. In the 2 years I was there, we found 35 tunnels on the border. This is how it started. And it started with smuggling tunnels, then it became explosive tunnels, then it became tunnels that cross into Israel, and defensive tunnels. And now it's a whole city underground. Unfortunately, we didn't learn the lesson. We didn't dismantle this terror infrastructure. We did the opposite. Sharon took a decision to withdraw from Gaza. And this created an exponential growth of terror because the moment we pulled out of Gaza and we connected Gaza to Egypt, endless amount of weapons, money, technology went into Gaza, and we couldn't prevent this buildup of terror. And talking about conceptia, I think that one of the things that worries me about the army is that the army was placed in a reality that it's not relevant. The army had no tools to prevent the buildup of power of Hamas. Each time there was an operation, at the end of the operation, Hamas became stronger, bigger, with more capabilities. And anybody could see that. If you look from operation to operation, it just became stronger and stronger, and it didn't matter how many airplanes attacked them. It was all underground, and it was not relevant. Now, instead of coming to the government and saying, guys, we cannot defend Israel. We have no tools. We need to go in. We need to destroy them. The army was looking for alternative ways of being relevant, which have nothing to do with the military profession. And this alternative way was economy. Let's let them work in Israel. Let's take Qatar and give them money, thinking that if you give them money, they'll become less radical. And what can you do? It doesn't work like that. So we embraced a strategy that was taken from the US, actually, a strategy called containment. Don't know if you know it, but in 1946, following the World War II, when at the end of the war there were two powers, the US and the USSR. The US asked, okay, how do we deal with the Russians? What do we do? And the decision was to embrace an idea called containment, containing the Russians, not letting them expand, but not fighting them directly. US didn't want a big war. It wanted to contain the USSR, and the US also did the military and space race, thinking that the USSR won't be able to catch up with their failed economy. And indeed, something amazing happened at the end of the 80s. The USSR collapsed without one bullet being shot at them. And Israel embraced this idea. Israel said, let's avoid the big wars. We don't want big wars. Let's focus on economy, on high-tech, on tourism. And our enemies will fall. And indeed, at a certain point, we saw the Arab Spring, and country after country in the Middle East collapsed. And this gave a strong sense to our leadership in the army, in the government, that this is working. We are avoiding wars. Economy is blooming. And they're falling. Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Libya, all of them collapsing. And there was that strong belief that this will continue. We just need to push a bit more these wars, contain, and at a certain point, Hamas will fall, Iran will fall, Hezbollah will fall. And there was also a way of thinking that conquering Gaza, it's not an option at all, although it was the only option. 2 years before the war, I said we need to conquer Gaza now. But the government, the administration of the army, Shin Bet, they thought, no, it's not an option. And unfortunately, although 2 years before the war we said in IDSF to the government, you have only two options, or Six-Day War scenario or Yom Kippur War scenario, they chose the Yom Kippur War scenario. And this is how we got to the 7th of October. So again, we can have 2-3 hours explanation about that, but I'll try to be brief. We're really talking about what is the doctrine we need to embrace when talking about securing Israel for generations to come. I think the first thing is that when talking about national security is first and foremost about national values. Without Judaism, without Zionism, without spirit, there is no tank and no airplane that can help here. We need to be a strong and resilient society connected to our heritage and history. This is the most important thing to do. This is the main thing IDSF deals with, educating the young generation, empowering them, empowering their identity and connection to the people and to the land and to the why. Why are we doing all of that? So this is something that Israel really needs to invest in. Second thing is, and I think we talked about it before the war, now it's clear, Israel must be able to defend itself by itself. We cannot trust anybody. We need to produce our weapons. We need strong military industries. We need a big and sophisticated army and not a small and sophisticated army. We need the National Guard. We need to live along defensible borders. And the borders that are defensible, the minimum is the land of Israel. You know that from the sea to the Jordan Valley, or as they like to say here, from the river to the sea, it's only 45 miles. 45 miles, it's not even Boston. And this 45 miles, it's 9 miles of shore, 9 miles of Jordan Valley. All the rest is Judea and Samaria, it's the mountains. Basically, Israel is Judea and Samaria with a bit of margin. Israel cannot exist without being on the mountains, without controlling and living in Judea and Samaria and the Jordan Valley, without the Golan Heights. And the other thing is that I think becoming clear, having terror armies on our border is not an option. We cannot have terror armies on our border. We have to be proactive. We have to make sure that never again, there will be a terror army on the Israeli border. We need overriding security over all of the land of Israel, of the IDF and the Shin Bet, freedom of operation everywhere to secure Israel. And beyond our borders, we need a vast area on all our borders that has no terror infrastructure. Because if you have tens of thousands of terrorists on your border, it's like a tsunami that is waiting to move towards you. And when you talk about everyday defense on the borders, it's like a spoon. You cannot stop a tsunami with a spoon. So you better make sure there is no tsunami on the border. So we have a lot to do and really make sure that in the future, the way the army is built, the doctrine, the thinking about national security ensures that we are safe. So when we're talking, in Israel we talk a lot about hasbara, about how to explain what's going on, and people are accusing us for murdering Palestinians and so on. And I think the only explanation Israel needs to give to the world is winning decisively on all fronts. Why? Because the world likes winners. And we need to win. We need to win for our own security, for our own future. I can say, looking at how is life in the land of Israel and getting a bit of proportions, I can say that when I was Deputy Division Commander of the Gaza Strip, I had many delegations that came and visited, and we used to stand in a site called Black Arrow overlooking Gaza, and they would ask me, I was a colonel at the time, they would ask me, Colonel, what's going on in Gaza? And I would say to them, you know, basically, since the day of the judges, same thing. You know, the Gazans attack us, we bring the people, we fight back, again and again and again. You read the book of Judges, and you look at the reality today, and you say, God, nothing changed, it's exactly the same. But at the end of the book of Judges, it says, and the land was quiet for 40 years. So our rabbis asked, why say that? Why does the Bible need to state that the land was quiet for 40 years? And the answer was that 40 years of quiet in the land of Israel is an event of biblical dimension. It never happened in 4,000 years. And we're living in biblical moments. And we have to make sure that we at least match what our forefathers did, really creating a reality that we can secure ourselves for generations to come. And for this, we need to really make sure that we win in Gaza decisively. We need to push the Egyptian army back to Egypt, out of the Sinai Peninsula. We understand that we need to build the army to be able to cope with regular armies, because for many, many years the IDF has been saying, that's it. There will be no wars with our armies anymore, just against terror. And suddenly, out of the blue, in the middle of this war. We're talking about two huge armies that might be a future threat, Turkey and Egypt. So we need to build the IDF looking forward with the capability to deal with these possible threats in the future, and might be not so far this future. And we need to insist, as I said, to make sure that there is no threat on our borders. In order to do that, we need to push back the Egyptians. We need to prevent from the Turks to move into Syria, and this is something that was discussed today. There was a discussion between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump about Turkey and making sure they don't move forces into Syria. So we have a lot of challenges, but I'm very, very optimistic as to our capability to really deal with the challenges we have with Gaza, with Iran. We won already in the north against Hezbollah. Syria fell. And things are changing in our favor, and we have a huge, huge opportunity to secure Israel for a very long time. So as I said, Israel cannot exist without sitting on the mountains. We need massive, massive presence of Jews on the mountains and in the Jordan Valley. That is, by the way, 309 kilometers long, the longest border Israel has. And of course, this raises a big question. If we need to settle the land of Israel in order to exist, if we need to be on the mountains, what do we do? What's the solution? What do we do with all these Palestinians? So theoretically speaking, there are three options. We try them all. We know what works and what doesn't work. One possible solution is what we call separation. Let's separate. They will be on one side of the border, we'll be on the other side of the border. And for the last 30 years, there were many voices calling for separation, which basically means retreating from Judean Samaria and the Jordan Valley, or retreating from Gaza and separating from the Palestinians, in order supposedly not to have a reality where they become Israeli citizens. So where did we do separation, practically? Where did we do that? Gaza. How did it work? Devastating, right? And Gaza is nothing. Gaza is nothing. It's a small, shallow area on the sea. This is not the mountains of Judean Samaria. This is not mountains where we defeated empires. I can tell you that if we would have done separation on the mountains of Judean Samaria, we would have ceased to exist, and we couldn't even change it again. I mean, look, we need the whole IDF to deal with this small, shallow place called Gaza. To deal with Judea and Samaria, you need 20 IDF. It's not an option doing that. So separation is not an option. The other possibility is military control. A claim that says, why do we need towns? Why do we need settlers? Let's control militarily the Jordan Valley or areas in Judea and Samaria. So when we talk about military control, where can we look at examples? Iraq, the US, Afghanistan, US and Russia. Where did Israel do just military control? South Lebanon. And it's amazing to see. It doesn't matter if it's Iraq, Afghanistan, or South Lebanon. It doesn't even matter if it's the US, Russia, or Israel. Everywhere you have only military control. It's always for a while and then you retreat. Why? Because if you occupy an area with an army that you don't feel belongs to you, and you don't claim that it belongs to you, you are an occupier. And then you start getting pressure from inside the society and international pressure to retreat. And it will take a year, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 20, but you will retreat. And once you retreat, you go back to separation, which is not viable. So military control is always for a certain period of time, and then you retreat. So it's not a solution, it's not a real solution. So what is the solution? The solution is, in the land of Israel, overriding security of Israel, of the IDF, over all of the land of Israel, from the Mediterranean all the way to the Jordan Valley, including Gaza, including Judea and Samaria. Israel needs to control, security-wise, all the area. The other thing is we need massive presence of Jews. Without settling the land of Israel, there is no security. I'll give you an example. You know, in Operation Guardians of the Wall, 3 years ago, as we were fighting in Gaza, the Israeli Arabs, some of them started rioting inside Israel, in the mixed cities, in the Negev. And in the Negev, the road between Beersheba to Arad, 2 major cities in the Negev, was blocked. It was blocked 3 days. A road inside Israel. This is not Judea and Samaria. This is not Gaza. It's not Lebanon. It's the Negev. Why this specific road was blocked? Guess what you don't have on this road? You don't have Jewish towns. Now you think I'm talking about the Negev, let's talk about the Galil. You know that one of our generals, Itzik Turgeman, he became a general and he became head of logistics of the army. And he planned how to mobilize the IDF from the south to the north to war. Think about it. You mobilize the whole army, you need many roads to mobilize. And when he finished his service, he was sent to an interview on one of the Israeli major papers. Very normal interview. It became viral. Why? Because he said in the interview, in a case of war, when we need to mobilize all of the IDF north to a war in Syria or Lebanon, the IDF is not going to go through what we call in Israel Wadi Yara. It's the road connecting the center of Israel to the city of Afula. A road that Israelis drive every day. It's in the Galil. It's not in Judea and Samaria or somewhere else. And he said, we're not going to go through this road. Now, look, Israel is a small country. Going from the center of Israel to the north, you have only 2 roads, Wadi Yara and Wadi Milek. So how come a general in Israel is saying one of the 2 only roads we have that goes north, we're not going through this road, it's a road in the Galil. Guess what we don't have in this road? No Jewish towns, only Israeli Arabs. And this is enough to make it dangerous enough that we cannot even drive through this road. And it's not in Judea and Samaria, it's not Palestinians, it's Israeli Arabs. And also in the Negev, we're talking about Bedouins. You know, when you drive from Jerusalem on Road 1 to the Dead Sea, all Israelis drive this road. And this road crosses Judea and Samaria from west to east. You go from Jerusalem down to the Dead Sea. Anybody who visited Israel and went to the Dead Sea probably went through this road, and it crosses Judea and Samaria. It's not the Negev and it's not the Galil. And people feel safe. Because guess what there is on this road? Jewish towns. So when you start driving from Jerusalem down to the Dead Sea, you look to the right, you see Ma'ale Edomim. You look to the left, you see Kfar Edomim, Alon, Mitzpe Yericho, Almog. you are driving in a Jewish corridor. And this is why you feel safe, very safe, even if it's in Judea and Samaria. The idea of settling the land to be secure, this is basic Zionism. This is Ben Gurion. This is not about right wing or left wing. You cannot exist in Israel without Jewish towns, massive presence of Jews. So let's think about it. If you need overriding security of the IDF over all of the land of Israel, if you need massive presence of Jews everywhere, then what is the solution? What do we do? How do we create a reality that we can solve this Israeli-Palestinian conflict without doing two things, without separating, which means retreating, and without giving them Israeli citizenship, and still adhering to international law? So the good news, there are many solutions. I can tell you that I wrote in my book, based on the research of IDSF, 4 different solutions to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. None of them include retreats and concessions. All of them include massive presence of Jews on the mountains, in the Jordan Valley, and you can even put Jews in Gaza if you want. Why? Because on one hand, our national security needs are very, very rigid. You cannot play around with them. On the other hand, statecraft is almost endlessly flexible. How flexible it can be? I'll give you an example. You know, in Italy, for example, you have 3 real states recognized by the UN, members of the UN. In Italy, you have Italy, you have the Vatican. The Vatican is a state the size of a neighborhood inside the capital of another state, and it's a state. San Marino in North Italy, city-state surrounded by Italy, overriding security Italian. It's a state. So if we look, again, talking about peace solutions, it can be also a 2-3 hours lecture. So I'll maybe give one example which I think is very relevant looking at this war. And it's a solution that is being pushed now by the state of Israel, so it's worthwhile talking about it. When we talk about the day after in Gaza, the government of Israel is saying the day after in Gaza, there will be no Hamas, no Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and also not the Palestinian Authority. Okay, so what's the solution? And the answer is, putting aside the plan to relocate them, the answer is probably city-states, cantonizing the area, building local leadership in the cities based on the local clans, all the Arab cities in Gaza, in Judea and Samaria, in Arab cities in Israel, inside the Green Line, they're all managed by clans. It's like the United Emirates. The United Emirates, what is the United Emirates? 7 cities, which are city-states run by clans. Now, the clans, it's families, and the head of the family runs the clan, and he wants all the clan to be loyal to him. What endangers loyalty in a clan is radicalism, is religious radicalism, and they tend to suppress it. This is why in the United Emirates, you don't have radicalism. They suppress it in order to keep the clans intact, and Saudi Arabia is doing the same. They are all built in tribes and clans, and they are suppressing today Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia in order to keep the clans safe, and they are more focused on economy. So imagine that you have in Judea and Samaria, Hebron as an emirate, Ramallah, emirate, Shechem, emirate. So the IDF is already working with local clans in Gaza, But what is interesting in Judea and Samaria is that 4 years ago, one of the clans in Hebron, Hebron is half of the economy of the Palestinian Authority, one of the clans, the Jabri clan, came to us, to IDSF. They said, you guys, you have good relations with the government. We want to depart from the Palestinian Authority. We want to become an emirate. We want to sign a peace agreement with Israel. We said to them, listen guys, great idea, but your clan, as big as it is, it's 40,000 people. Where are all the other clans? And they said, okay, let's wait and see. And I can tell you that 2 months ago, and this is something I'm telling you now that nobody knows, okay? 2 months ago, 10 clans representing 400,000 Palestinians in the area of Hebron and Yatta, in the area of the Judea Mountains, came to us with a letter to the Prime Minister saying, we are calling you to recognize us as an emirate. We want to join the Abraham Accords. So things are changing dramatically. They are changing in Gaza, they are changing in Judea and Samaria, and I think that in the future we won't have the Palestinian Authority, we won't have Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad. We'll go back to what was the original vision of Rabin before Oslo, building a relationship with the local leadership of the Arabs. I think this is where this is going. And this is not against the idea of Jews being able to settle big parts of Judea and Samaria, what we call Area C, and the Jordan Valley. So we can bridge between security, ensuring our security for generations to come, and also our connection to the land of Israel and to the historical places and to the religious places, and also giving self-governance to the Palestinians in a way that they can be happy and really connect their economies with ours, and they work together and have their own citizenship. So I want to update you a bit about what's going on now and where things are going. I think we started this war, of course, with a very big crisis, with a very big trauma of the 7th of October. I can say that 2 years before the war, we in IDSF, we saw the war coming. We wrote a national security assessment explaining why the war is coming. We presented it to the government and to the defense establishment. And on this national security assessment, which you can see in our website from 2022, we put on the cover of this assessment a picture of a frog being boiled in a pot. And we said, this is Israel. Israel is being boiled. It is facing 4 different big challenges, all of them potentially existential. We talked about Iran and all its proxies, everything that we're experiencing in this war. This is 1 threat out of 4. We talked about the Israeli-Arab conflict inside the land of Israel, which knows no boundaries of green line. It's a conflict that is all over the land of Israel. We talked about something that Israelis don't really deal with, but you guys deal with it at all, every day, anti-Semitism and delegitimation as a threat to the Jewish world. And the last thing we talked about was us, the Jews, millions of Jews that are distancing from our core values, from the connection to Judaism and Zionism, from the connection to Israel, forgetting that we are not the villains in our own story, we are the heroes of our own story. And we have to remember that. Because every good story has a hero and a villain, and it's time we remember who we are. We have the greatest story of all nations. All the world embraced our story. And we are the heroes in this story. And it's important to remember that. Now, on the 7th of October, as devastating as this day was, on the 7th of October, something else also happened. This frog jumped out of the pot. It's not there anymore. And from that moment onwards, we're fighting two big wars. One war is our brave soldiers fighting on all fronts, on 7 fronts, and doing an amazing job, winning the war. But there is another war going on, which is a war that I would say IDSF is really at the forefront of this war, and this is keeping the frog out of the pot. This frog cannot go back again to the pot. What does it mean going back to the pot? It means Hamas stays in power. It means Hezbollah rebuilds itself. It means Iran continues its path to nuclear weapons. We cannot have a reality like that. We need to win decisively on all fronts. And we have been pushing very, very hard to make sure that this happens. I remember one of the most defining moments we had in the war. The war started, it was a huge shock for everybody. I think that one of the only people who were not shocked is us, because we saw the war coming and we said it is going to come. This is why many people started following us from the 7th of October, because we were the only ones actually knowing what they were talking about and empowering the army and the people and the government. And a few weeks into the war, 300,000 soldiers amassed out of Gaza. And the big question is, are we going in or not? Are we attacking in Gaza or not? And there were experts coming from the US speaking to the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defense, the Chief of Staff, saying, don't go into Gaza. If you go in, thousands of soldiers are going to be killed. And the society was also very afraid of what will happen. And at this defining moment, the Prime Minister calls us for a meeting. And we arrived to the Kiryat, to the headquarters of the army, 8 generals, and we sit outside waiting for the meeting in the lobby. And as we are sitting there, I'm saying to myself, this feels to me like a Churchillian moment. You know, when Churchill was elected, the Nazis conquered all of Europe. The British army surrounded in Dunkirk, 300,000 soldiers on the verge of extinction. And Churchill stands in the British Parliament and gives this amazing speech, showing strength and saying we are going to win this war. We are not going to stop. We are going to fight on the mountains, on the beaches. We are going to fight until we reach victory. And I said to myself, when we are going into the meeting with the Prime Minister, this is not just about giving him the right advice what to do with the army. This is about spirit. And we go in and we sit, and I sit in front of the Prime Minister. And I see Prime Minister Netanyahu, sad, pale, face fallen, tired. And I look at him and I said to him, Mr. Prime Minister, you know, it's devastating what happened on the 7th of October. You must feel terrible. You're probably asking yourself, how did it happen to me? I cannot even imagine what you are going through. But I want to tell you something. You need to understand something. You shouldn't feel like that. You are privileged. You were chosen. You were chosen to lead Israel in its most defining war in its history. For years you have been saying that we need to attack Iran, that we need to change the reality in Israel. And here we are. Yes, it started in a terrible way, but we were given a huge opportunity. The frog has jumped out of the pot. This is our moment. This is your moment. All your life has been preparing you for this moment. Now you need to lead us to total victory on all fronts. And my generals told him, listen, we know that the army really messed it up on the 7th of October. It's terrible. But we know the commanders, we know the soldiers. Give them the command. When they will attack Gaza, nobody will stop them. The army will win this war. And at the end of the meeting, we all stand up, and I go to the corner of the room to speak with the head of the National Security Council, and as I'm speaking with him, I feel somebody tipping me in the back. I turn around, I see Prime Minister Netanyahu. He hugs me strongly, and believe me, he's not a hugger. And he says to me, Amir, thank you. And he leaves the room. The next morning, he gave command to the army to attack. And for that moment, we're moving towards a decisive victory on all fronts. We started by focusing on Gaza and defending all other borders. We attacked Gaza for 10 months. We destroyed most of Hamas' capabilities. We surrounded them. We conquered Rafah and Philadelphia amid the threats of the administration saying that they won't give us munitions. We destroyed all the industries of Hamas. And at a certain point, we understood that Hamas is surrounded. We set the terms for their destruction, and then we moved the center of gravity from Gaza to the north. In the north, we conducted an amazing historical attack with 5,000 vapors exploding instantly and hitting 5,000 Hezbollah commanders. We attacked the leadership of Hezbollah. We attacked all their strategic capabilities, and Hezbollah collapsed. Yes, we did. We won. And following this amazing attack of Hezbollah, Syria fell as well. And I can tell you that if we take a snapshot of the north of Israel, we haven't had a better security situation in the last 40 years. The north is completely different and much more secure than it was, I can say, since I was a company commander. It's not that there is zero challenges, but the situation is completely different. We also attacked in Iran, destroyed their air defense, attacked some nuclear sites, and now we are in a very defining moment. Defining moment where the army has prepared plans to conquer all of Gaza. We are trying to first get our hostages. We are doing a lot in mounting the pressure on Hamas to release the hostages. Israel is not going to give up any hostage. At the end of the day, we'll bring all of them home. But there will be a moment in the coming months when the IDF will be amassed on the Gazan border, and they will go in, and the IDF is not going to stop until Hamas will be completely eradicated as a governmental and military entity, and we're going to take full control of the Gaza Strip. And once we do that, we're going to implement Trump's plan and start relocating the Gazans, of course, those who want to live, and really changing completely the reality in this place. And as this is happening, we see the US amassing more and more capabilities in the Middle East in preparation of a decisive attack on Iran. And at a certain point, there will be, I believe, an attack on Iran, led, I hope, by the US, that will bring a collapse to the Shia axis. So we're definitely moving towards total victory on all fronts, and Israel is not going to stop until it happens. And I can tell you this, the bigger the win will be, the more decisive this win will be, the greater the golden age of Israel and the Jewish people will be the day after. The day after, there will be peace agreements, and the economy is going to bloom, and there will be massive aliyah to Israel, and there's going to be baby boom. There's going to be really an amazing era for Israel and the Jewish people, but for this, we need one thing: stay focused, stay united, and win this war. Thank you. Well, I think that it's important to know that I think most of the Israelis really want unity. The Israeli society is very resolute. People want to win this war. We hear the media all the time dealing with different things and all the time trying to create chaos between right and left and politics and Netanyahu, not Netanyahu. There is a lot of noise. And I think that the challenge is rise beyond this noise and see the big picture. And the big picture is that we are living in biblical moments, that what is happening is really going to shape Israel and the Middle East and the globe for generations. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge that we took upon ourselves in IDSF to really talk about the vision and really try to focus the Israeli society on the important things and not get confused and deal with other things. I think that looking at what is the vision for the Israeli society in the long term, I would say the Israeli society needs to be built on three important pillars. One, everybody needs to serve in Israel. We cannot be strong without that. And we will push strongly to make sure that everybody joins military service. It's important for the unity of the country. It's important for the national security of the country. But having said that, and the need for everybody to serve, we are not Sparta. We are not a nation that glorifies only warriors and wars. We also can be a bit Athens, flourishing democracy, culture, music, traveling. I pride myself of being a very serious warrior. I fought 30 years, but I also play the piano and clarinet. I like classical music. I enjoy good wine. I like traveling. So we can be both. We can be a bit Sparta and a bit Athens, but it really all starts with Jerusalem. And I think that the most important thing for our society is connect back to our core values. What unites us is our Jewish identity and Zionism. So I think that the assistance in this war of the US is extremely important. The munitions we are getting, the support, the capabilities is assisting Israel a lot. And I think that on one hand, we really need to push all the time to be able to defend ourselves by ourselves, but it doesn't mean that we don't need a strong ally. We do. And we have many common interests, and we have to cultivate them and really deepen them. It doesn't matter how much Israel will be self-sufficient, we still need to be very close to the US as our biggest ally and friend, and this is not going to change. As for the discussion about the hostages, I think that the main message is, if we want to exist, we need to reach all goals of war. We need to eradicate Hamas as a governmental and military entity. We need to bring back all our hostages. And we also need to make sure that never again there will be a terror army in Gaza. And everything needs to be reached. There is certain moments where we focus more on the hostages. There are certain moments that we focus more on eradicating Hamas. But we are able and we need to do both. Saying to the government, what's the problem? Just get the hostages and we continue to fight. It's problematic. It's not a serious claim because obviously Hamas understands that if they release the hostages, we will simply easily eradicate them as we attacked Hezbollah. So they're not stupid, and therefore it's very tough to really manage on one hand to release the hostages and on the other hand to eradicate Hamas, and still we need to be able to do both, and steadily we're moving towards achieving both goals. You know, it's like, I would say anything that we deal with in life, like on one hand, it's extremely important for people to spend time with family, and on the other hand, it's extremely important that people work and bring money to sustain the family. So imagine if somebody says, no, being with the family, this is top priority, you need to do only that. Don't work, just be with the family. Or the other way around, go to work 24/7 and don't be with the family. Why this is the most important thing? Life doesn't work like that. And the same goes with the question about eradicating Hamas and the hostages. We need to do both. And yes, it's complicated, just as life is complicated.